Yeah, right. Thank you very much for tuning in. So, all right, so everybody's under attack, all right? So, I just wanted you to just think a little bit about the seriousness of what I'm going to read here, all right? So, Denmark had contraceptives secretly implanted in Greenland women. Yeah, this is incredible. This is beyond uh, I mean, this is exactly what the Rome Statute was written for. Exactly this, right? This is exactly what the Rome Statute was written for. The Rome Statute, if you're not aware, is it has a definition of the word genocide, right? So this is exactly what it is, right? Exactly. This is not preventing, the conception. This is actually causing early abortions and all that stuff. So let's read this a little bit. All right. So the forced contraception campaign crippled Greenland's population growth in the 1970s, with former Prime Minister Mutte Egede. However you pronounce that, describing the program as a genocide. 100%. I mean, it always will be, right? This is not empowering women and women's rights and my body, my choice. No, this is certainly a nasty, nasty, dirty trick on a woman and on a society, a society. All right, so what do we get here? All right, this is recently. All right, this is just a couple days ago. We see this article here. So the Danish government forced contraceptives on the population of Greenland for decades. An investigation revealed. Can you imagine how he forced contraceptives? Yeah, I just want to show you this for a minute. Just give me a minute here. All right, so this is the Rome Statute. This is what I was talking about. So basically, this will give you the definition of a genocide, right? So that's the point here of the Rome Statute. But we can all feel it in our hearts. So we've got Article 6, Article 7, crimes against humanity, and all that stuff. So let's go see down. Let's see what we can see. So this basically is the genocide here. This is it would be the evidence would be admissible and the court would have jurisdiction, right? So let's see what it says here on the genocide. This is the actual definition here. Let's see what it is. Let's see what does it say? Right. Let's see. Oh, we got a little bit out here. All right. So genocide means any of the following acts committed in it with intent to destroy in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, such as killing members of the group, right? So you can't actually do that. It is unlawful, right? This is what I'm. This is the whole channel is all about. This is exactly what the whole channel is about, right? And causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. I mean, this is certainly, could be argued here. Um, and deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, like taxation, funding abortions with taxation. And over here, imposing measures intended to prevent birth within the groups. Look at that. This is exactly, oh yeah, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group, right? So this is the word here was literally created to describe what these people are doing. All right, these are just lunatics. Now we get an extermination. Right, this is no, don't get me wrong. Right, they are exterminating, the group of people. It's incredible. It's really really is. All right, so let's go back. Oh, forced contraception. Right, that is just wicked, wicked stuff. Right. Um, Here we got don't pay attention to that because then you're gonna get your channel my YouTube channel banned or whatever. All right, so in the 1960s and 70s, thousands of Inuit women and girls were fitted with the IUD by Danish doctors as a part of a government program to prevent them from reproducing. Can you imagine? Can you imagine these doctors, right? These doctors are so creepy. I mean, these doctors are not doctors at all. Sorry, I should say that. They're not doctors at all. They are, you know, mad scientists. I guess you could say, yeah. I guess that would be a great thing. Mad scientists, yeah. A few cases of forced contraception took part after the 1970s as well, and as late as 2018. Uh, can you imagine that? Just a few years ago. This was very very recent, 2018, just the other day, right? As reported by the British Broadcasting Corporation. All right. So the scale of the program was first publicized by a Danish investigative podcast called this one here, the Coil Campaign, Spiral Compagn. Um, A spiral would be a coil, I guess so. Yeah, makes sense. As the IUD implanted in the women's uterus uh, are commonly referred to as coils. Okay, so so that makes sense. Um, in the past couple of years, many Greenlandic women have publicly stated that they received these coils without their knowledge or consent. Right? Even with the knowledge of consent, they would be lied to anyways. But they imagine forcing a woman, forcing this onto a woman. That is a crime. That is a terrible crime. That is a really, really serious crime. So, National Archive records revealed that 4,500 women and girls, including some as young as 13, has IUDs implanted between 1966 and 1970. However, it remains unclear how many were administered without the women's consent. A group of 143 women have filed a lawsuit against Denmark demanding adequate compensation. Most of these women were under 18 at the time. They were fitted with the IUDs. So the former Prime Minister of Greenland, Mute Egede, right, called the program a genocide. It is 100%. I agree with this gentleman here. As the population growth of Greenland significantly slowed down in the 1970s from previous high numbers. And it's very important to remember that this doesn't actually prevent the pregnancy. It really does not. It really does cause early abortion, right? So that's even worse, right? It's not even mentioned in this article, but that's even worse, right? So we have to remember the victims here. Uh, Denmark and Greenland agreed to investigate the coil scandal in 2022. Following this investigation, a formal inquiry is launched, and its findings are set to be released next month. So for sure, we'll be covering that. I will make sure to cover that on this channel. Greenland was a colony of Denmark until 1953 and has increasingly gained more independence over the past decades, but remains an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. So a belated apology. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has now issued an apology, saying we cannot change what happened, but we can take responsibility. On behalf of Denmark, I would like to say sorry. She said, acknowledging the physical and psychological harm the victims suffered. Not only the victims, the children that have died of an early abortion, right? That is really what's going on here. It's even worse than this article is so much worse than it is. And they're not even talking about that in the article here. Even though we do not have the full picture, Fredrickson stated, it makes a serious impression on the government that so many Greenlandic women unanimously report that they have been subjected to abuse by Danish healthcare systems, by the Danish healthcare system, and there we get an expansion of abortion here. Oh, that's always great. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful, incredible, incredible stuff. Right. This is an ideology, right? So these people have a serious, mental, a mental, it's I don't know if we could call it a mental cancer if you want to put a type of I think this is a very, very Catholic website. Some imagery and all that stuff. So do not worry about that. Here we get some Catholic imagery and all that stuff. So Roman Catholicism. Here, these images are unlawful against the Ten Commandments. So this is really a Catholic life site here. Is a Catholic publication. So I'm really sorry to have to put this here, but I'm just screenshotting the website. So we're going to not look at that here. So Denmark was not the only country engaged in forced contraception and sterilization in the post-World War II era, right? Imagine that, right? Eugenics-based sterilization programs of Native Americans and those deemed undesirable, for instance. I'm just going to, how should I do this? I'm gonna put this over here. Gonna put, see what I'm gonna do here? I'm just gonna see that. All right. So eugenics-based sterilization programs of Native Americans and those deemed undesirable, for instance, due to mental health issues, were active in the United States and Canada until the 1970s. In the U.S., an estimated 150 to 150 sorry, 100,000 to 150,000 people were sterilized each year under duress. Oh man. Oh, that's awful. That is awful. In Sweden, around 60,000 people, mostly women, were forcibly sterilized under the country's eugenics law. No, sorry about that. I don't want to see this ad. Um, 60,000 people, mostly women, were forcibly sterilized under the country's eugenics law, active from 1935 to 1975. Other countries with similar programs included Czechoslovakia, Brazil, Puerto Rico, Bangladesh, India, and Japan. The worst eugenics program was run by Communist China, with whose one-child policy included millions of forced sterilization and abortion. Oh, that is a terrible policy here, one-child policy. Certainly a terrible thing, right? If I'm sure we could do a whole YouTube channel on that, but maybe a video we could touch on that, right? That's really really terrible. And China really does push the birth control pill, even today, very strongly pushed, and the deception is very clear that these people don't understand it causes early abortion, which is not even mentioned in today's article here. All right, what else we got? Last thing, and we're going to where? So we don't have to see the ad. All right, so in the decades after the Second World War, the narrative that the world would soon become overpopulated was widespread and led to government enacting eugenic policies and propaganda campaigns for contraception and abortion. So whoever's responsible for these contraceptions would not have been successful had it not been for the mental, you know, warfare, right? The psychological warfare that came along with that, because overpopulation and all this stuff. Well, there's no chance the Earth is over. It's just not true, right? And they just accept it on face value, with no proof or anything like that. In 1968, the Club of Rome was founded, an organization that gained significant political influence and claimed that rapid population growth would destroy this thing here. And we're not going to talk a little bit about that, so I'm really sorry about that. How could I, censor that? I'm not even going to talk about that. Heliocentrism, right? The idea that the Earth is a round spinning ball, right? If you're still believing that, right? You I mean, why this channel is not for you. We are not heliocentricists here. All right, this is why this we got to watch out with the this news article again. So where does heliocentrism comes from? It comes from Catholicism, right? That's the whole point. So we're not going to talk about that. Um, but in this geocentrism versus heliocentrism is a fine topic of conversation if you're going to talk about it rationally and not be slinging insults at people who ask questions, right? Which is basically the only defense that heliocentrism has, right? You're stupid. The education system failed you, right? That's the type of argument that the heliocentricists will put forth. So I'm not even going to go there. I quit doing that a long time ago. In the same year, Paul Ehrlich published his infamous book, The Population Bomb. The Population Bomb, warning of a population explosion that could lead to worldwide famines by the end of the 1970s. What nonsense. Yeah, worldwide famines. We'll see. The only reason I would have famines is because of government mismanagement and all that stuff. What else we got? Yeah, although alarmists claims turned out to be completely wrong, his Malthusian ideology continues to influence politics and popular culture. It is wrong. It's 100% wrong, right? So this is the world is not overpopulated. That's nonsense here. But as for this Catholic website, you gotta take the good with the bad. You take it with a grain of salt. But LifeSite, they are pro-life and all this stuff. So as a pro-lifer, I align myself with basically 80 to 85, 90% of it, what they're saying. But when it comes to Catholicism, you have to be careful because it's very clear that Catholicism, like let's be honest, all right, you're not going to go confess your sins to this celibate priest in this confessional box and expect to be forgiven for your sins, right? Call no man. Jesus says, "Call no man father." Right? Call no man father. That's what Jesus says. So I'm not going to call this father so and so, and listen, Father so and so, he's going to have you praying to this this statue of the Virgin Mary and all this stuff. Like what kind of statue are you going to have me praying to with and all this stuff? So Catholicism, um, there's a whole bunch of traditions. Like sometimes they read the Bible, right? Don't get me wrong. Sometimes they read the Bible, that's all right. But most of the time they're interested in their traditions, right? So anyway, Catholicism, the whole thing about the celibate priests and all that stuff, and the Eucharist, right? There's only one way to be forgiven for your sins, and that's Jesus forgiving you, not the Catholic priest forgiving you. You know. What was the definition of the word priest anyway? It's a book found. It's a word found in the Old Testament, right? In the book of Leviticus, you hear this word priest, right? And that's a different time, right? It's not talking about us today anyway. But this here, forcing contraceptives, you better believe it's wrong. Yeah. Anyway.